of that as you're getting to wherever you need to get to today, whether that's work or school or wherever. A lot of weather out there. Roadways are a little bit slick. And of course, our prayers are with the people of Florida. Just a devastating hurricane that hit yesterday down in Florida over by the Big Bend area. And Joe, I've seen some pictures from Tampa Bay coming out this morning. A lot of storm surge. It's difficult to imagine that the Predators are going to actually play their preseason game in Tampa Bay tonight. We'll wait and see. But as a rough-looking hurricane last night that hit Florida.
Yeah, so far, I guess I've seen 3 fatalities. But certainly, I think the storm surge is over 9 feet. Like Ian a couple years ago, I think was in the 20s. So I mean, but still, you're talking about a Category 4, and when it hit land, and one of the biggest reportedly that they have seen in the last century in the Gulf of Mexico, as far as just like area coverage. I think there's like 6 states with a state of emergency right now. So it's I think it's a tropical storm now, right? Yep. I think that's right. But yeah, hopefully, you don't hear about any more fatalities and the damage can be as limited as possible.
Yep, no doubt about that. And again, lots of rain moving into our area this weekend, so make sure that you're aware of that. Rex Road, how we doing? What's going on?
About to float away, but doing all right. Have pins and needles. Knoxville canceled all their games, so we had the rumor yesterday. That was floating around that the game's going to get canceled. I've got a brother-in-law who's flying in in a few hours. Yeah, from DC. So, I mean, I guess with rain. Just rain. Hopefully that'll be fine. But he's coming in to see Brennan's game, big Nolensville Centennial tilt. So, but I mean, the football tonight in this area is going to be, it's going to be rainy.
A little soggy.
I know that some schools moved up to last night. I think, there's been some, I think maybe some in the mid-state also have postponed for a day or two. I'm not sure about that. There was some talk of that, but yeah, tonight soggy, but also, the wind is supposed to be pretty steady, 20, and could gust up to 40. So it's a running the football kind of day.
You can factor the wind into your pass. You can get out there doing some equations or something like that if you want to. Aaron Rodgers used to talk about stupid stuff like that at Lambeau Field, and I was just like, shut up. Just throw the ball. What are you talking about?
Hallucinogens will do some crazy stuff to you, man.
Keyser, good morning. What's going on? How we doing?
Morning. Yeah, doing well. Can't complain. Getting ready for a nice little weekend as well. Going to another SEC school this weekend, fellas. Going to see my little brother at Auburn this evening. So that should be fun.
Who they got?
Oklahoma.
Yeah, they got Oklahoma. But the one caveat, we're not going to the game, actually.
Okay. They're going to play on the road at any point?
I don't know. I thought that's a great question. I think they're done after this game. I think they're on the road for the next 2 or 3 games after this.
Okay.
Something like that. I don't know.
That is a great point. Auburn and Michigan, they get all home games. It's amazing.
All home games all the time. We got a lot to get into on the program today. Jared Stillman will be with us at 7 o'clock for his weekly visit. David Ubben from The Athletic will join us at 7:30. We'll get into the Vols, all things college football in this wild UNLV story that we talked about yesterday with David on the show a little bit later as well. TD will join us at 8 to look ahead to the Titans and the Dolphins. Taking your thoughts in the meantime, 615-737-1025. Thursday Night Football, Joe. Cowboys win 20-15 against the Giants. So Cowboys get to 2-2. Giants fall to 1-3. I will say, though, watching Malik Neighbors play football is pretty fun. I don't know who 25 is for the Cowboys. I need to go back and actually look and see who the player is. But that may have been the most disgusting route I think I've ever seen somebody fall for in the National Football League. Malik Neighbors, 12 catches, 115 yards on 15 targets last night from Daniel Jones throwing in the football. That kid's pretty good.
He is, and yes, that was a pantsing, as they say. Pick up the laundry. Bill Raftery, pick up your laundry.
That's right.
On the field. The interesting thing is, that was a 39-yarder. The rest of the night, he had 11 catches for 76 yards, if my math's correct. So not quite 7 a catch. It's funny because I'm watching. It's like Daniel Jones looks good. He's throwing the ball accurately. He is, as we know, he's athletic and he can run. And extend plays and all that stuff. But I think last night was a great example. It gets to the point, Robbie, anytime a coach decides to kick, people howl about it,
Yes.
like the analytics folks are going to come out. Like I got into this argument with basically everybody else on the college football staff at the Athletic, like just that Mark Stoops was just an idiot for punting against Georgia. And I'm like, dude, they're not picking up a 4th and 8 the way things are going, but they've been stopping Kentucky all night. I totally disagree with you guys, but the analytics said, win probability. Okay, well, I think you're wrong. Well, last night,
Nerds.
I think, yeah, exactly. Mitch, shout out to Mitch Light if you're listening. Last night it got to that 4th field goal, and I must say I was on board with, at some point you're just going to get beat kicking these field goals every time. I like a day ball, and of course everybody went nuts, and I was like, okay, this time I actually agree with you all. Like at the point where you get to your 4th field goal, I'm with you guys. At some point you have to go Dan Campbell on something, and it cost them. It cost them. They never, got in and had a chance to actually win the football game.
He's gonna get fired. Like Dayball's gonna get fired. They're gonna have a new quarterback next year. Like there's a lot of change, I believe, forthcoming for the New York Giants at the end of the season. Just my guess.
No, you're probably right. You are probably right. I still don't think he's a bad coach, but yeah, you're talking about we know it well around here. You're talking about an offense basically right around 15 a game last year, all of last year, and right there this year too.
Yep.
One way or another, that's gonna. And again, go for touchdowns sometimes.
Sometimes it's not about like how good of a coach you are. It's about like where you go and where you end up. And I think that could be like I'm with you. I think Dayball's a good coach. But like when you end up in a spot where Daniel Jones is your quarterback, and then you let Daniel Jones have a good enough season to apparently influence everybody in the organization to pay Daniel Jones money. That's how you end up in trouble as a head football coach, Joe Rexo. That's my 2 cents in the NFL.
Yeah, you're right. The thing is, too, though, it's like that year that he did have a good year, that was the year everybody's like, wow, Dayball was the key in Buffalo.
Yeah.
And look at this guy. He's even taken this kid and gotten good quarterback play out of him. But yeah, I mean, it's probably going to be his undoing too. Not that, I mean, there was other stuff though too. Like he get in fights with his defensive coordinator last year and stuff like that. I mean, it's not like it's been smooth, but yeah, I guess the Cowboys show that they can stop the run a little bit after being the worst run stopping team in the NFL through the first 3 weeks.
Do you think he's taught Shane Bowen how to correct mistakes in New York? Like, has that been something that Shane Bowen has learned? Did he take Arden Key's lesson to heart and say, you know what? I think we might need to actually correct some of these mistakes. I mean, they held the Cowboys offense to 20 points last night.
They did. I mean, the defense seems to be doing well. So that's the amazing thing is like those stretches where the Titans defense was dominant, like, did they just never make mistakes? I mean, how did you figure that out without ever mistake correcting? I don't know.
Coaches, what's going on out here? This is way better than we thought it would be. Unbelievable.
Yeah, well, Shane, at least for Shane's not the problem in New York, so good for him.
Yes,
they have bigger issues.
There's no doubt about that. So congratulations to the Cowboys. They get NFL's Week 4 off to a roaring start with a 20-15 win against the New York Giants. It is fascinating. By the way, I hope everybody was listening to me all week when I said CeeDee Lamb anytime touchdown on FanDuel Sportsbook, because that happened last night.
Nice job.
Make sure that you're prepared for that in the future. NFC is fascinating. Like I've watched a decent amount of the Cowboys so far just because they've constantly been on national television so far this year. And I'm not overly impressed with what I've seen to this point. They look like a team right now that is going to have a very predictable finish of being halfway decent in the regular season. And at the end of the year, Mike McCarthy getting fired as he probably should have been at the end of last year, and then them restarting and going ahead with Dak Prescott after that.
Yeah, I think that's probably the way it's going. They don't look, because look, I thought that maybe they could have a great defense, and because obviously you start with Micah Parsons, they've got talent on that side of the ball, but they obviously have some holes over there, and Dan Quinn has missed. I mean, Dan Quinn, I think, is missed. As you've pointed out, his last outing was not so awesome
Look good.
against your Packers, but yeah, they don't. They're good. They're probably going to make the playoffs, I still think, but they're nothing special. So it's just, I don't know. I don't know how they get out of. I mean, there was all the talk about moving on from Dak, but it just, could you do better than Dak? Yes, but it's not going to be easy to improve on him. And in the meantime, you have all these other issues, and you have a lot of guys getting paid, but then the rest of your roster suffers because there is a cap.
Titans fans, it has been a rough week, really a rough few weeks for you to begin the season, but I don't want you to fear because Joe Rexrode has some very encouraging news for you coming up next, and it's tied in with Pro Football Focus. We'll get into that. Robbie and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, the game. Hey, Robbie Stanley here. The NFL is flying by, but you still have time to start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. The Packers and the Vikings coming up on Sunday. It's going to be a doozy of a game in the NFC North. We'll see what the status of Jordan Love looks like, but I will take a Jaden Reed anytime touchdown in that game. I think they'll find a way to get him in the end zone. That's just me. You take it any way you want to take it. Just visit FanDuel.com/Rob to make every moment more this season. Once again, that's FanDuel.com/Rob. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older and present in Tennessee. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued is not withdrawable bonus bets, which expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Got a gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789. Welcome back in, Robbie and Rex Road, broadcasting from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Titans fans, we know it's been a rough start to the season. It's been a rough week. You're 0-3. You're looking ahead to a Monday Night Football matchup against the beloved Miami Dolphins. I'm sure the nation is teeming with excitement on that game. But Joe, never fear. Joe Rexrode, always the harbinger of good news and the bearer of good news. And Joe's got some good news for you this morning. Rexrode, what have you discovered in your findings with the Tennessee Titans this week?
Well, PFF, which, as you know, I celebrate everything PFF does, their entire catalog. They ranked the offensive lines in pass protection through 3 weeks, and the Titans are not last. They are 31st.
Oh.
They are not 32nd. So there you go.
That's improvement.
Well, the Patriots are last. By the way, can you guess who's first?
Detroit?
It is the Indianapolis Colts. How about that?
I think that's a little deceiving, but okay.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. A lot of this stuff can be deceiving. Now, Johnny G, friend of the show, who's certainly not awake yet, Nashville Post, John Glennon, got into this and wrote a good story about this. And we know that he likes Pro Football Focus too much.
He does.
Okay. But he also pointed out there's other, the 33rd team actually has the Titans 22nd in pass pro. And Pro Football Reference, the 26.5% pressure rate is 10th highest. So it's not, like absolute disastrous. But I thought interesting stuff that Bill Callahan, Bill and Brian Callahan actually have said. So Brian Callahan we talked about this, he has said that he thought Skoronski's playing pretty well. It doesn't look that way to us. I mean, I think, look, when you have some big whiffs that are costly, then you're going to notice. And that's the thing. It's like with offensive line play, unfortunately, I mean, you can have great snaps like 90% of the time, but if the 10% are bad or whatever it is, right, are really bad, then like that's what people see.
Yep.
I mean, that's what people remember. But if you want to get deep into the weeds on the PFF, Latham, I think we'd all agree. I mean, Latham is the best lineman that they have right now, and I think he's on an upward trend. The last 2 weeks, I mean, I think he's given up. Is it one pressure or three pressures? But he's been. I mean, you can watch him; he's figuring it out. And even when someone gets him, with an outside speed rush, he's got the quickness and the strength to just kind of ride them away. He does that a lot on the outside moves, and I just think he's going to be a really good player. So his PFF grade 72.8, which is the best. Skoronski's down from 61 to 59 last year, 61 this year, 59. This is all in Glennon's story of the Nashville Post. Radin's down from 67 to 64.9. Cushenberry last year was a 73, and he's at a 57.
Oh boy,
that's a little bit alarming. And then Petit Frere is 52.4, which is the worst.
Well, that matches up.
It matches up. It's up from last year according to Glennon, but again, last year he barely played, and that's where the Petit Frere thing comes from, right? It's like, again, he had ups and downs as a rookie, but it was not some like, oh my God, get this guy. It's not like Duncan, who to me, I just don't see it working out. I like the Titans are doing this like they're both going to get reps thing. I don't think Jalen Duncan's going to work out at all, and I think that they just have to a little bit like Will Levis ride it out with Petit Frere.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that for no other reason than the other options are not, tenable. I do think you have to ride it out with Petit Frere, at least for the time being. And then if it continues to be what it's been the last couple of weeks, Joe, then you're probably going to be forced to at some point look at your offensive line and say, all right, we either need to go get somebody or we need to find a way to move like Radin's out there and put Brunskill in, which you and PK both discussed this week. Like they obviously don't want to do that right now, and I understand that. But you also, you can't have if Petit Frere is going to be this bad, he can't play the whole year. Number one, you'll get your quarterback killed, but he can't play the whole year. If he's going to be as bad as he was in the Jets game and the Packers game, that is not a tenable option at right tackle. Not that Jalen Duncan is, because I'm totally with you. I mean, that's going to go really poorly if that's the way they decide to go with that. But Petit Frere needs to improve drastically in a hurry. I'm not saying he's even got to be good, but he can't just be an absolute turnstile out there either.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, look, I think I don't know. I don't know. Like Bill Callahan, I think some O-line coaches do. I think we've seen it here. Shuffle things around at some point, not too far into a season if it's just not working. And I think the Raidens outside thing could, but again, it's just like everything they've said to him and everything they've done is nope, you're a guard now.
Yep.
Just you're a guard, So if that's the case, because that to me is the only viable solution. The only that's on the roster,
I mean, Brunskill has played right tackle before, has he not?
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah, I think that's right. So, but I mean, they don't like his size at guard.
Yeah.
So I mean, so it's just it kind of for what Bill Callahan is looking for. I don't think that's going to be an option. I know people talk about Chris Hubbard. I guess he's on the Cardinals practice squad. So you could go that route. You could try that. He has he gave them some decent games, but it's just like a guy like that. If he's on the Cardinals practice squad, what does that say about where he is right now as a player? But look, if it's going to continue to be this bad, then I think just about anything probably has to be on the table. I just don't know how Bill Callahan is Bill Callahan a big like no, give it a few weeks. But look, they did yank Petit Frere, and they put in a guy who I personally just have not seen. I understand he has like the traits or whatever, but like the mistakes are pretty consistent with him, and well, I'm talking about with Duncan. So, yeah. But they did the swap in, and now they're talking about a competition. So it's not like they're averse to significant changes early in the season.
Now we have seen, Joe, in this city, and we've talked about it a lot on this program. Some relatively big named offensive line free agents come in here and struggle at the beginning and then get significantly better as the season went on. And of course, Roger Saffold is the shining example of that, right? He came in, Taylor Lewan was suspended for the first 4 games when he was in here. Saffold looked awful, and we're like, geez, who is this guy? And has he just forgotten how to play football? And then as the season went on, Saffold got a lot better, and Saffold was a good player here for a few years with the Titans. You brought up Cushenberry and the PFF grade, and that kind of matches up with what we've seen out there. It's not been great from Cushenberry either. We have seen him play good football in the National Football League before. Your concern level with Cushenberry, or is this an adjustment period for him? Like, how do you view the Cushenberry part of this?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's probably I think Saffold's a good reminder on him, and it's probably I mean I can't imagine that again unless there's some sort of physical diminishing with him that has taken place that he won't figure it out and be what he's been. And it's kind of like I mean there's also there's track record with him just like there's track record with Bill Callahan, that you do have to trust some people that we're looking at right now don't have track records.
Yeah.
So we're like, what's going on? But like Cushenberry does. So I think he'll probably be okay. I mean, I know again, I think when Brian Callahan talked this week about the left side, like basically, left tackle to center being pretty basically fine. The right side is the concern. Again, I think we're seeing Skoronski make some huge mistakes, and some people are like, really? And obviously, Cushenberry's PFF grade isn't very good. But I've seen Cushenberry also give up sacks this year and like get beat, stuff like that. But yeah, I still think that's probably going to be how it turns out as over the season. We're going to talk a lot more about the right side than the left side. But again, Skoronski would be the one that you need to see more from.
Well, Cushenberry better get ready to play his best football this week because it's the Aaron Brewer revenge game. Jeffrey Simmons is already talking about Aaron Brewer. Aaron Brewer's doing the one-arm push-ups. He's got the scale out to show Stilly how much he actually weighs this week. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Simmons. I think Simmons. I don't think it was bulletin board material quite that Simmons said, but it's a little bit of like, yeah, I know what we got with him. So, but yeah, you Cushionberry, 1-arm push-ups, man.
I can't wait to the Dolphins like run the ball right up the middle this week, and it's going to be like, hey
God.
Jeff, maybe for a week, just don't say anything at all about the opponent. Nobody
Aaron
runs the
Brewer.
ball in Tennessee Titans, and yeah, we know Aaron Brewer. We know what his strengths are.
Aaron Brewer pancake Simmons.
Yeah, could happen.
Just like this tiny little kid. And he like somehow puts Jeff on his back.
Just cackles.
All
and
85
runs
pounds
off.
of him.
Yes. You know, Miami Sun down there, you can lose some more weight. Has anybody in Miami asked Aaron Brewer what his weight is down there?
I don't know. That's a good point. I guess we'll find out Monday night. Has he gotten to the Mendoza line yet?
That's a good question. We'll find out coming up on some Monday Night Football. There was a question, Joe, as Charles Robinson was talking on our program yesterday that went through my head that I am dying to ask you coming up next. We'll do that. Robbie and Rex Road, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Check out this week's Nashville's Best Deal. It's Premier Six Theater at 810 Northwest Broad Street in Murfreesboro. Whether you're a fan of timeless classics or can't wait for the newest releases, Premier Six Theater has something for everyone. Head to theGameNashville.com/deals and get half off a $50 gift card while supplies last. Welcome back in, Robbie and Rexro. Taking your thoughts on the Titans on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. So, Joe, we talked with our good buddy Charles Robinson yesterday on the program, and we're just discussing the starts of the season for the Titans and the Jags. And, of course, that led to the Trevor Lawrence conversation and how bad Trevor Lawrence has looked and the contract that they just signed him to and him playing his worst football, certainly since his rookie year. You can make right now an argument that he's playing the worst football of his overall career since he signed the deal over the offseason where he's getting paid $55 million per season. And, Joe, I'll be honest, the thought going through my head as Charles was talking yesterday was, like, this is just the most Jags thing ever. Like, the Jags can't get out of their own way. They've been just a really poorly run organization. They have not been relevant other than a magical run in 2017 that they had to get to the conference title game. They've been relevant hardly at all over the last 20 years. Like, they're just a bad organization. And I think when people hear Jacksonville, they're like, man, it's not it's on the short list of the poor organizations in the National Football League. And Joe got me thinking, like, how do people view the Titans beyond even here just in Nashville? How do people view the Titans? Like, do they view the Titans similarly as they view Jacksonville? Are the Titans league-wide in better standing than the Jags are at this point? Does it really matter at the end of the day? How do you think people view the Titans as it relates to everything that's gone on with them over the course of the last 3 years?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, obviously there's some team. I mean, the circus in Dallas is constant, right? And Jerry, if it isn't, he'll make sure it is just with his own comments. So you got ownership, like that. That's sort of, I mean, I think Jacksonville definitely has earned this. There's just something wrong from the top down. I've talked many times about the Lions. I think that's about how it's been viewed. We talked yesterday, Robbie, about the top, the Athletic. We did a thing, excuse me, but the top 10 front offices.
Yep.
And it's like a lot of the same sort of teams you'd expect. Like Baltimore's at the top. You got Pittsburgh in there. There's an ownership link with a lot of that, where there's stability, and that's been generally, like Chiefs, like good, quote unquote, good ownership. I feel like, first of all, you go back to Bud Adams. I think Bud Adams was viewed around the league as eccentric. Would that be, and,
probably fair.
A little bit rash to judgment. I mean, obviously with the Oilers, you have to go way back, but certainly he's not the only owner who's gotten into a flap with the city and moved his team. But those owners, I think, around the league are generally viewed. I obviously it's great for Nashville, but like league wide, it's not like he's Stan Kroenke. Like, there are worse situations than some, right? I mean, I think he had some beef with the way things went down, but still, there's that aspect of it. And then, of course, you go back to like the late 70s and basically firing Bum Phillips, when it was just like the reality was, like, you just weren't beating the Steelers then. They just couldn't get past the Steelers. So it's like, well, fire this guy. Really, that was a bad decision. With Amy Adam Strunk, I think there's been a lot of praise around the league and a lot of like, wow, look at the consistent winning. Look at the stability. Look at you have a face, an owner who's not afraid to go in and mix with the fans and like invest in the locker room and all these things. And then the firings start coming. So I think it's obviously just like anything. We view the local team and talk about it all the time, and on a daily basis take account of it, right?
Yeah.
Whereas around the league, but I do think, Robbie, that especially way more than John Robinson, even though the in-season firing, certainly people were like, wow, that's weird. But the Vrabel firing got a lot of backlash around the league, as we know. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, you told me Vrabel could be traded for a pick and Vrabel's going to get hired, and Vrabel didn't get hired. But still, like, I mean, I still think a lot of people still believe the exact same thing, which is, man, that was not the move. So I think that really changed a little bit probably around the league. People like, what exactly is going on with ownership with the Titans?
Well, it's just kind of amazing, and there are exceptions to this, obviously, but a lot of times, like, bad organizations just continue to be bad, right? Like, look at Cleveland. So Cleveland drafts Baker Mayfield. It does not go well, and they get to the point where they feel like they've got to move on from Baker Mayfield. So they go out of their way to sign this guy who, albeit at the time, the off the field issues were starting to become more public, but that we know has played good football, right? Like Deshaun Watson in Houston was a really good football player. Off the field stuff aside, he was a good football player. And now he's gotten into Cleveland, and it looks like when you watch him play, he's forgotten how to throw a forward pass. Like it's really, really bad. And Cleveland was the one that decided to bend over backwards and give him the fully guaranteed contract. And still to this day, I think that's made people around the league mad that they actually decided to do that. But they were the ones that decided to do it, and it has totally backfired on them. Totally backfired on them. Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence, I don't blame the Jags whatsoever for taking him, right? Like he was supposed to be a generational type player. And he just, quite frankly, has not come close to that in the NFL. He's had his moments where he's looked good and he's had some good games. And, I don't know that I think he's a bad player, but it just feels like the bad organizations, for the most part, just stay bad. And I'm not lumping the Titans in with the Browns and the Jags because I don't think they're that. But it is kind of like a red flag, and I think a cautionary tale, Joe, of like, if you don't get your stuff in order, this is what you can become in the NFL, and that's not a place you want to be.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Now I will say, I have to, as much as I joke about it, I have to acknowledge, like, the Detroit Lions look like a non-dysfunctional group right now.
And that's why I said there are some exceptions, because they are certainly the shining example of that right now.
But look, I think that there's a member of the Ford family who, like, actually seems to know ass from elbow. I
That may be my new favorite phrase of yours.
I mean, like, I don't know, like, and obviously, like I said, like, you can have a clueless owner in sports, and just, look, the hiring pool of here's like the obvious 5 possible coaches you could hire. Here's the obvious 5 possible GMs you could hire. You could luck into, like, having good people. And again, if you stay out of their way, but that's asking a lot sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But Sheila Ford Hamp actually seems to, she's the daughter of William Clay Ford Sr., who was a horrific owner, but seems to, have a pretty good sort of way of going about things. Again, they hired a really good GM. That's been the best part. Everybody focuses on Dan Campbell, but the player picking there has been astoundingly good lately. So, that's all of which is to say, like, it can happen even for bad franchises, but then sometimes it can get worse when you go from, like, original owner to kids.
Yeah, the Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell combo up there is pretty darn good.
Yeah. No, very good. Yeah. So again, that's sort of like, I don't know, is that lucky? Probably to some extent, but it just seems like it's like public, just like the public persona of Sheila Ford Hamp is like, wow, seems like a pretty reasonable person. Look, again, the public persona, I think Amy has done a good job of, publicly and things, but then now we get into all this stuff and all these issues and these rash decisions, and now there's no more talking to anybody. You do one interview with Mike Keith.
Yeah.
And I just, that's just, to me, that's just not the way to go about things, but that's where we are.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. So how do you think the Titans are viewed league-wide? Do you care how the Titans are viewed league-wide? And how do you think that's factoring into what we're seeing right now from this team over the last 3 years? We'll get more into that coming up next. Robbie and Rex Road, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Tune in to Sports Talk 8:30 a.m. this Sunday for coverage of the Hollywood Casino 400. Coverage will begin at 1 o'clock. The race set to start at 2. Coverage also available at theGameNashville.com. We'll go back in Robbie and Rex Road. We'll have Jared Stillman coming up at 7 o'clock. Get his thoughts on all things Titans as well. The birthday boy. His birthday was yesterday, apparently. So, mine's tomorrow. Didn't know I was that close to Stillman.
Really?
Yeah.
Jared yesterday and you tomorrow. We should have had like something today to
like
celebrate both of you. Maybe the
citywide
station
party.
I think the station all day long should be celebrating Stilly and Robbie.
Too bad you're not here, Joe.
Wow.
Well, I can still celebrate from here. I got some birthday here. Hold on. Look, I got some wrapping paper right here.
You do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Christmas wrapping paper, but yeah, whatever. You know.
Rex Road is always prepared.
We'll go with it.
That man is the most prepared individual I've ever seen.
Here, I have a little baby doll here. I don't know what this means, but then we can celebrate with. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, man. Taking your thoughts. 615. Keezer's dead. Keezer's gone. 615-737-1025. Dylan on the text line says, bad organizations almost always seem to be terrible at developing a quarterback. Even if they draft a great prospect, they don't develop him, which is why there's a lot of examples of those high-pick guys leaving bad organizations and having success in other places. This from Dylan on the text line.
That's an interesting point. Is there I feel like there's still good organizations that have quarterback, like the Steelers, we'd all agree are a good organization, right?
Yes.
And they've been wandering the wilderness since Ben, right? Like, so I don't, but that isn't, I would read a study on that, like on the hit rate of bad organizations where you would think there would be some correlation there.
You would think. Now, like, Baker is a good example, right? Now, look, Baker's not playing like a league MVP or anything like that, but he has gone from being not very good in Cleveland with a situation around him, especially at the beginning, that was just horrible. And now in Tampa, he's turned into a good player. Like, he had a good year last year, and he's off to a pretty good start at the beginning of this year, even though I know last week did not go well for them. But, like, he's a guy that has totally revitalized his career. Darnold's another one, right? Like, we'll see. It's only been 3 games with Darnold in Minnesota, but it looks really good so far. And he came into the NFL, number one, went to a tire fire of an organization with the Jets, and was really, really young. Wasn't he like 20 when he came into the league? Like, he was a really young kid in the league, and he has kind of bounced around. He was in Carolina. Charles was talking yesterday about kind of the reclamation project that he underwent in San Francisco and how much improvement there was. And so far, you've seen that in Minnesota. We'll see if it continues.
Yeah, he is a very interesting case. And again, you go Jets, Panthers, then you get that year in a good organization, and it's like, wow, what can that mean to someone? I think the Browns are the classic example of the organization that has been bad, that I think has been rough from the top down and has just been forever in search of a great quarterback and has drafted so many high that have all busted. And then, like you said, then you get a pretty good one. You actually win a playoff game, but no. Yeah. Let's take off the whole league and change everything with this ridiculous contract for Deshaun Watson that has blown up in their faces. They are, I think, definitely a correlation of bad org and bad quarterback history for sure.
The Ed on the text line says, funny thing, most Titans fans hate when the team doesn't get respect, but when they're good, but don't mind when they're ignored when they're bad. That was the poor job of reading by me, but
yeah,
point taken.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah, no, nothing to see here, everybody. Yeah, nothing to see here. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with the Titans when their recent stretch. Well, we were talking about how, like no one ever talks about them. They don't get the attention they deserve, and now it's like, yeah, that's fine. This is when it's good to be ignored.
Gunner on the text line says, I think it's hilarious people are throwing shade at Doug Peterson. Just a couple years ago, they were praising him for raising Lawrence out of the Urban Meyer mess. That's the wild thing to me about this whole Jacksonville thing. Like, number one, last year you looked at their team and you said, yep, I mean, they should win the division. They had the best team on paper heading into the year, and we know what happened. They had in Peterson's first year, which was Lawrence's second year. The second half of that season, go look at the numbers. Like, he played really, really well, and they started to win a lot of games. And of course, that was also aided by the fact that the Titans went from 7-5 in first place in the division to firing their general manager and a total collapse at the end of the year. But the numbers are what they are. Like, Lawrence played really well the second half of that season, and it felt like that was the beginning of the ascent for him that everybody expected. And he got a competent coach in there and not that tire fire under Urban Meyer like it was in year one. And it felt like he was on his way. And Joe, ever since then, you've been kind of waiting for him to get back to that point, to the point now where I'm asking, is he ever getting back to that point? It's been a really weird way that it's all played out with Lawrence specifically in Jacksonville.
Yeah, no, it has. And I don't know. I mean, it's just obviously you have the Urban excuse, and then it's true. No question. It was like Doug Peterson. Oh, this is perfect. This is a great hire. And it looked really good. And I don't know what's happened since then. I mean, I think Peterson is going to be the one who pays for it. And then they're going to bring in somebody else. That is how, we talked about this on Jared versus Joe and Jared Shane win the other day. I mean, that's how it always goes. Like the quarterback who just got paid, unless it's just, like obviously the Browns would love trying to find any loophole they can in Deshaun Watson's contract. But for the most part, it's going to be the coach, GM, and or GM who get fired, not the quarterback. Once you pay the quarterback, so they're going to keep searching. I don't know. He just seems. I mean, like the one play of him the other night, spinning away from no one, was a little bit of like. So I mean, the seeing ghost thing is real, man, in this league with quarterbacks, and so I can't say that I've watched them that closely. I also say, and of course, this is what you say, after a team loses 34-7 to another team. But a year ago, it was like the Jags, clearly they're going to win the division. And also, like, are they the second best team to Kansas City? And we know what happened. And now this year, it's like, the Texans are clearly going to win the division, which it does look like that's true.
Yeah.
And are they the second best team to Kansas City? And we're here in the wake of a 34-7 loss to Minnesota. I'm like, gosh, is it going to happen again? Probably not. Because I feel still right now, I feel a lot better about CJ Stroud, but that was ugly last week.
It was ugly. And look, every team for the most part throughout the NFL season is going to have a stinker or two here and there.
Sure.
And I think it's pretty clear. And Charles talked about this yesterday, that the Brian Flores defense is causing people some fits right now and what they've been able to do up there. So, I guess I'm willing to give Houston one game there. I mean, the problem is I think they're clearly the best team in the division. It's not even close. Like, just go watch them play. They're clearly better than everybody else in their division. How much better? I guess we're going to begin to find out. But I've seen enough good football from them already this year where I feel good about them. But, we've been talking about bad organizations. There was certainly a time, Joe, where we would include the Houston Texans in this discussion, right? With the ownership situation and bringing in Jack Easterby and all that other stuff. Like, they were in the wilderness for a while.
Well, they're a great example of, obviously they had some bad hires, and they had, they even had, they had Bill O'Brien oversteps, and all of a sudden he's a bad GM and all that stuff. So you could look at, I mean, it's not like people thought the McNairs are fantastic owners or anything like that, right? But if you whatever it is, fall into good hires, make good hires, you get good people who know what they're doing, and then all of a sudden, you get someone at the most important position who looks like he's going to be really good for a long time, and all of a sudden, wow, you're a competent organization. I mean, like the tail definitely can wag the dog on this thing in the NFL.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And they're a good example too of how, it can change pretty quickly. You hire the right people, you make the right decisions, even for a short period of time. You make the right decisions from a personnel standpoint, and that's the beauty of this league, man. Like, it can change pretty quickly. Now, particularly when you hit at the quarterback. Like, yes, you can make some right decisions, in other parts of your roster, and that will certainly help you. But if you hit quarterback the way that they did, I mean, that's how you expedite things very quickly in this league.
Exactly. And so that's what everybody's trying to do. And in the meantime, you talk about bad organization and quarterback. So here's an example of, I keep going back to this franchise, but the Lions were objectively a terrible franchise, and ownership and all that stuff. They had a great quarterback.
Yep.
For a long time. He was the number one pick. He was the obvious number one pick in the 2009 draft. They took him, and he was as good as they hoped. People don't realize how good he was because he was on mostly bad teams. They did make the playoffs a couple of years, but that can still happen too. And sometimes it still doesn't really move the needle enough if you're bad enough elsewhere. And it didn't, they not only did they have him, they had Calvin Johnson.
Say they had arguably a top 10 wide receiver of all time.
Oh yeah. I think easily a top 10 receiver of all time. But that's the thing. Like that gets lost in how bad most of the teams he was on were. But so it's not because the thing about this whole Stroud and the Texans thing is like, that's what we realized last year. Everybody thought they'd win 4 games last year. Right. And like, we'll see if the rookie's any good, but there had been other improvements that had been going on that actually were pretty good. And all of a sudden it was like, oh wow, it's actually a pretty good team. And then you also hire a good coach. Right.
Yeah.
So you do the double whammy of coach QB. That's can be powerful.
Jared Stillman will be with us coming up next. We'll get into the state of the Tennessee Titans franchise with him. More coming up next. Robbie and Rex Road, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Hour number 2, Robbie and Rex Road, 1025, 1063 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rex Road, Nick Keyser, intern Robert here with you on this Friday morning. And we welcome in our good friend Jared Stillman to the program like we do every Friday morning at 7 o'clock. Jared, good morning. Happy belated birthday. I hope that it was awesome.
Thank you. Happy preemptive birthday for you, Robbie. I really, really excited. You probably turning 33?
32.
Or
thank you.
32. Man, I tell you, I used to be 32, and life comes at you fast, boys.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. Rexro, tell us more.
No, I mean, John, boy.
Let me tell you something.
Mid-30s.
Joe told me when I was like 28 years old. He was filling in for Floyd one day, and Joe told me during commercial break, he was like, now let me tell you, when you get 30, when you turn 30, everything changes. The hangovers are worse. Your body's aches in the morning. You're this, you're that. And I turned 30 years old, and not one of those things happened. And I was like, I guess my body's a little different than Joe's. And then I turned 31, and it was like if I had a cocktail the next day, I was like, ooh.
Just out.
And I was like, oh, okay, maybe my parents lied to me about what my actual age is. Maybe I'm actually 1 year technically behind, because 31 for me was everything Joe said 30 was going to be.
Wow. I didn't know.
Joe, what happens when you turn 70?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're all rotting corpses, and it doesn't really matter. 10, 20 years difference, whatever.
So, Jared, I want to start with you on this. Obviously, the 0-3 start has been rough to watch. What's your sense of where this fan base is right now? Because it's not just the 0-3 start. They've lost 21 out of 27 games. There has been change. They have hired a new head coach and a new general manager in the last couple of years. But I get the sense that there's a lot of frustration with Titans fans. We've been hammered with it all week on our show. Your overall sense of where Titans fans are, the psyche of Titans fans at 0-3 to begin this season.
I think the Titan fans are, I think they're kind of over the excuse making. I think that there was, I think that this has been kind of a collision course with the bottom of the NFL since the day they fired John Robinson. And I know that, we've probably all talked about a lot of this lately, not to relitigate whether or not Robinson should have been fired or not. I mean, that, I feel like we've relitigated that a lot over the years. But even like Robbie, you who had said that at the end of the year, if things had not changed in 2022, you would have fired John Robinson. I think even you were probably like, 7-5 in first place. Who does that?
That is correct.
And I think that when it happened, I was, obviously I'm a huge Titans fan, and I was just beside myself because I could not get over how short-sighted and how reactive the idea of firing a general manager when you're in first place was. And look, the draft picks were not good, and the AJ trade was bad, and Robinson had made some really bad decisions, but you were winning. Like, he'd never had a losing season. And I'm like, if that's not good enough, what are we doing here? And once you show me that your decision making is that poor, it makes me think that you're going to make more poor decisions in the future. And so I really was grieving kind of the ability of the Titans to compete when they fired Robinson, because I felt like this was inevitable. So on Sunday, I was at the game. I felt like the game against the Packers, 17-7, it felt like it was 1700-7. But I felt like that was as embarrassing given the circumstances as the 59-0 game in New England. And yet I wasn't even that upset about it, because I've seen this brewing for a while. I think Titan fans, to your question, Robbie, I think Titan fans have kind of, with each passing thing that's happened, each person that gets fired and the new person that gets brought in and the new press conference, I think they're kind of starting to not drink the Kool-Aid as much anymore, because Mike Vrabel was popular when he got fired. And so there were some people that were like, I'm not sure I like that. And then now I think there are some people that are like, hold on, wait a minute. We didn't have a losing season for 6 years. And now all of a sudden we bring in a new GM and a new coach, and everything's supposed to be better. And the quarterback turns the ball over every game, and the punt team can't block, and they're getting penalties on field goals. And I think they're starting to lose faith, though. I do wonder if I'm just projecting my feelings onto everybody else.
So do you think that there's apathy? Because apathy is one of the worst words a professional sports organization can hear. And certainly right now is not the time the Titans want apathy, because they absolutely are desperately trying to sell these PSLs.
So there wasn't apathy last year. Last year, I mean, there was a lot of drama and gossip, and I don't know if the lack of apathy was because Titans fans, instead of being apathetic about it, are apoplectic about it, or if Titans fans weren't apathetic because Mike Vrabel was such a good story. I mean, look, Vrabel probably didn't like me very much, but and I certainly had my issues with his ability to coach at times, but Vrabel was good for business now. I mean, Vrabel was, he was a star coach. Like, the Titans don't have star players, but for whatever reason, maybe because he played, maybe because he was kind of a,
yes,
Richard, like maybe like Mike Vrabel, he was a star coach. So maybe that was some of it, but I don't feel apathy. I mean, you guys have been taking phone calls and texts and everything this week. I mean, do you guys feel apathy?
No,
through that?
no.
I feel it could be coming.
I feel it could be. We may not be that far away from it, though.
I mean, 14 weeks is a long time, boys.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I mean,
It is.
It's hilarious to me because in the offseason, a narrative will creep up in like March. And the narrative that gets spun in March all of a sudden becomes the narrative until kickoff in September. Nothing changes between March and September for the most part. And then all of a sudden in September, every little narrative that every ounce of faith, morsel of faith that the fan base has, and it's not just the Titans, but it's every team, either is completely validated or turned upside down right away, and it is week to week. And again, the 30 weeks outside of football season, those, don't really affect much. But then inside of football season, you lose. I mean, it was a long 6 weeks for Vrabel at the end of the year, and we're talking about basically triple that. So, I mean, it's I tell you, a lot can change between now and 14 weeks. If this team, I think that if they lose to Miami, I think that it's going to be, house on fire, and then the apathy might start to set in.
So with that in mind, the Levis part of this, I've heard you talk about it. I think all three of us are largely on the same page of, like, right now, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to make a quarterback switch. I will ask you, though, like, let's say that it's more or less the same as what it's been, maybe minus, rolling the ball on the ground to Tajay Spears as they move forward here. How long do you let it go? Like, how long do you let it go if you're the Titans, if it remains pretty similar to what we've seen through the first 3 weeks?
So Derek keeps bringing up the idea that the team could lose, or that the coach could lose the locker room if he doesn't make a quarterback change, and the same things keep happening. And Joe, I don't know, were you in the locker room yesterday?
No.
Oh yeah, well, Joe doesn't cover the Titans anymore. But TD said to me yesterday that no. But I don't, I'm a talk show host. You're a capital J.
Right, you had a high noon. Yeah, you had a high noon in your hand. Okay, go ahead.
So, but TD said that, like, a lot of the dudes in the locker room yesterday were like, hey, like, this Miami game, like, this is the game that we need. This is the game that, gets us going. And this is the game that, and the sense I got, and I know you guys are going to have TD on, in an hour, but the sense I got from TD, and I might be wrong about this, but was like, hey, they're kind of, the locker room is pinning their hopes on Monday night. And I do wonder if Monday night is a continuation of week 3, which was a continuation of week 2, which was a continuation of week 1. I do wonder if at some point these guys look at the coach and say, okay, enough. I don't want to go out here and play. I mean, Chris Sanders is talking about benching him. And when Chris Sanders is talking about benching somebody, that is when it's a concern. So, I mean, again, I don't really see the upside in putting Mason Rudolph in there. We tried out the Chad Brinker AI model, cancer curing model yesterday, and it doesn't see much of an upside as far as putting Mason Rudolph in there. But at the same time, if you just hired a new coach and he's already in danger of losing the locker room, then maybe they do have to make a change.
Well, look, at some point, at times, like the organizational, like, directive from up high, and again, Callahan can blame it on, it's like, guys, I mean, you're not going to gather the team together and say this, but, like, people have to understand that this season is mostly about Levis. I understand all these guys are trying to win and they're busting their butts. They're also getting paid. I mean, they're not doing this for free. They're not volunteering. So I just, unless it's like Levis is so disastrously bad that he is clearly the reason they're losing. Everything else is good. He's the reason. And it's like,
he has been that right. Like to this point, he is.
He's been a primary reason. He's been, I mean, the first week, no question, he's the reason. You got those punt blocks mixed in there too. And then last week, the defense was bad. So, right? We can agree on that. Defense was bad last week.
I think the game completely changed at 17-7. I mean, I think that, it's 10-7. You've gone down your first drive, scored a touchdown. Yeah, it's not pretty at this point, but, it's still in what Coach Shoup would call the feeling out process. Levis throws a pick six. And at that point, again, it might as well have been 1,000,000-7 because my sense in that stadium was this team ain't coming back and this quarterback ain't coming back. And so, I mean, I think it's like Rich Gannon said yesterday. Rich Gannon was like, I mean, you throw a pick six in a game, you're going to lose 90% of the time. And Levis is not good enough to be able to overcome those kind of mistakes. Brady could throw a pick six. He'll make up for it. Malik, if he's playing for the Packers, Malik can't throw a pick six and the Packers overcome that. So Malik just doesn't turn the ball over, and all of a sudden Green Bay wins. So I would say that squarely the number one reason you're losing right now is Levis. And then there's some other reasons behind that as well. The punt blocks you brought up. I think that the offensive line is a disaster. I don't know how I could be more right than Bill Callahan as far as the personnel is concerned, but it looks like that's the case.
You're probably smarter than him, really. That's probably what it is.
I mean, we need to launch an investigation, a commission to figure this out because, I mean, I spent all year saying don't put those guys at right tackle, and they kept saying Bill Callahan knows, and I'm like, I guess.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, what a decade. What has that guy proved over decades? Not much, but Jared's got the answers.
Look, hey, a broken clock might be right twice a day, and not everybody's right all the time. I get it.
You said it, not me.
The fact that I spent all off season being like, I understand Bill Callahan's Bill Callahan, but I'm not sure I agree with these personnel decisions by Bill Callahan. I mean, that is disconcerting to me as a Titans fan, even as somebody who likes to be right.
It's not disconcerting. This is you're running a parade every time you open your mouth. What are you talking about?
I'm not enjoying this. I am a Titan fan.
Oh, you're enjoying the hell out of this.
I am not enjoying the hell out of this terrible season.
You'll know how I knew the game was over in the interception the other day? Because that was the 17th point that Green Bay scored. And I was like, well, that's like the max end of what the Titans could do. That's it. That's it.
It's just like, it's like when Mariota would throw interceptions and Floyd would be like, we can't go in a game and Marcus throw an interception. And I'm like, well, these other guys can throw interceptions and it's not the end of the world. He goes, and the other guys are good enough to make up for it. And when it comes to Levis, like Levis is giving the other team, the margins of all these games are so small. We all know that. It's all, 3 to 10 point. I mean, like the game last night was 5 points. And these games are so small. If you take the 2 pick sixes plus the ball rolled on the ground and take those 3 points away, Will Levis is averaging 5.6 points a game that he's giving the other team over the 3 games. That's 6 points. He's essentially spotting the other team a touchdown. You cannot win in the NFL unless you can go out and score 3 touchdowns yourself. You cannot win in the NFL doing that. And I keep wondering, like, and I mean this is not like a rhetorical I'm putting him down question. This is how long does it go where he does this before we just say, you know what, this is what he is?
Yeah.
Like he is going to give up a touchdown a game to the other team. Like how long is that? Is it 6 games in a row? Is it 7 games in a row? I saw Kaharski wrote an article that, we need to be patient with Will Levis. I didn't read the article, but I saw the headline and I'm like, what is patient? Is it the whole season? Is it half the season? Is it 10 games? Is it, I'm thinking like he throws the pick 6 to Green Bay. You're standing on the sideline. You're Brian Callahan. Don't you think if he does something like that, like on the next drive, you have to take him out of the game? Like, I don't know the answer to that, but I mean, how patient is too patient? How long is this until this is who Levis is?
Yep.
I mean, I certainly don't think we're waiting 5 years like we did with Mariota.
Well, there's no doubt about that.
I mean, I guess somebody I guess somebody smarter than me will have to answer this. Somebody like Bill Callahan or Rand Carthon or Chad Brinker and his cancer-curing AI models that said that PT could play right tackle. Maybe they have the answers. I don't.
Jared, this has been a lovely visit. Happy birthday. And starting things off on a new leaf. Very calm between you and Rextro today. Thank you for being with us.
I mean, it kills Joe to admit that I was right about the offensive line the entire. Happy birthday this weekend, and I don't even know if UT doesn't play anybody this weekend.
They do not.
They? Well, then at least you
Stress-free
can't be upset about it,
weekend.
though. The
That's
balls are
right.
good now, so and congratulations on the return of Jordan Love.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. We'll react
See
to
you
what
guys.
Jared has to say. Coming up next, take your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Robbie and Rex Road, 1025, 1063, the game.
Hey, folks, Joe Rex here talking FanDuel Sportsbook. NFL is rolling, but you still have time to start the season with a big return on FanDuel, which is America's #1 sportsbook. You're going to get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet on FanDuel. Let's go to Sunday. How about Chiefs Chargers? Derwin James missing that one. Jim Harbaugh not happy about that one. Is Harbaugh going to make a little statement against the Chiefs? If I'm doing a parlay, I'm saying no on that. However, I'm also going under on the Patrick Mahomes passing yards. That would be 2 legs of my parlay for one of the best games of Sunday. Do whatever you want. Just make sure you're visiting FanDuel.com/Joe102 and make every moment more this season. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. You must be 21 or older, present in Tennessee. First online real money wager, only $5 first deposit required. Bonus issue is now withdrawable. Bonus bets will expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem, call the Tennessee Red Line to 800-889-9789.
Tune in to 93.3 FM Totally Hits Nashville tomorrow for MTSU football. Blue Raiders taking on Memphis on the road. Pregame starts at 5 o'clock. Kickoff at 6:30. MTSU football coverage on 93.3 FM Totally Hits Nashville is presented by Sloan's Motorcycle ATV. Appreciate Jared Stillman for being with us in the last segment. We'll have David Ubben coming up at 7:30. We'll get into some college football with him. Taking your thoughts in the meantime, 615-737-1025, our phone number. 615-737-1025. Chip from Mount Juliet. Titans' woes start with the offensive line, just like last year. That's the root of the problem. It starts there. Alex from Montreal, going back to Jared's comments from last segment, J. Robin Vrabel deserved to be fired. Every time we bring this up, we always get like half of the people talking about that and half the people talking about how dumb it was to fire J. Robin Vrabel. It's a very interesting social experiment on our text line.
Yeah. Now, amid the preseason optimism about this team, I think there was a lot more of like, oh yeah, thank goodness Vrabel's gone, and now there's a little bit more backlash on that, right? Which probably
Mike,
grows.
we love you so much, Mike.
Yeah.
Please come back.
Not that he's having a great impact on the Browns. Maybe he should see if Deshaun Watson will race him out there instead of just Jameis Winston and get Deshaun Watson unlocked. But yeah, my whole thing again, as I've said a million times, I think John Robinson was absolutely worth an evaluation at the end of that season, and I probably would have given him another, but definitely like there was no advantage, benefit, only negative from firing a GM in season, unless there's something else going on, which there wasn't. Even though our friend Stilly tried to push for weeks this plane from Green Bay garbage, which now he claims he didn't. By the way,
I figured you were way too nice to him last segment, so here we go. Just
I know. I should have brought that up. Like just recently, I heard him on the show that, well, a couple days into that, I figured out. I thought maybe it was the HR thing. I figured it out. I looked into it, and it wasn't. I'm like, wait a minute, dude. For weeks on our show, you're still screaming about the plane from Green Bay, and we're like making fun of you. And now, in retrospect, you're saying in 2 days, you were like, oh no, I knew that. It was fine. He also said recently on his show that he was ripping Amy and going through the changing of the mind thing with Vrabel. And I'm like, wait a minute. You had this amazing theory that she purposely lied about how Vrabel's coming back. So now, no?
This is more like it.
Woo, what a chameleon. What a chameleon. I know. Why am I saving all this stuff for after he's gone? Come back, Jared. No, I'm just kidding. Don't come back.
You just felt bad. It was his birthday, and you couldn't be mean to him.
Yeah, we were having a nice, friendly conversation. It was fine.
We do. It is very funny because we get some, not every day, but I would say every few days. Like, do Jared and Joe like actually hate each other? I'm like, no, guys, they don't. I promise you, they don't. They're actually good buddies.
Yeah. Yeah. And, long fuse.
Yeah. Yes, no doubt. 615-737-1025, our phone number. David Ubben from The Athletic will join us coming up next. We'll get his thoughts on the Vols, their start to the season, and his thoughts on the Matthew Sluka situation in UNLV that we discussed yesterday on the show as well. That's all coming up next. Robbie and Rex Road, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Welcome back in. Robbie and Rex Road, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rex Road, Nick Keyser, intern Robert here with you on this Friday morning, talking a little college football. And to help us do that, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And welcome in our friend David Ubben from The Athletic. David, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for taking time to be with us. We really appreciate it. So there's a lot to get to with you today. Let's start with the Vols. They go into Oklahoma. They get the win. They're 4-0 as they enter into their first bye week here. What have you made of what you've seen from Tennessee, and do you consider the Vols a legitimate national title contender?
Contender, sure. I mean, they're going to be in the mix. I was pretty high on Tennessee coming into the year. I liked a lot of their personnel. I liked kind of the murmurs you kind of heard out of camp, and they've probably exceeded even my expectations. I thought it was kind of silly that they were kind of a borderline top 15, 20 team coming into the year. I was like, this is probably one of the 10 best teams. They might be one of the 4 or 5 best teams. Maybe, one of the 2, 3 best teams. So I think we're going to learn more when they go up against Alabama and Georgia. That's kind of been the test for them and this offense is, hey, when you go mano-a-mano with teams that can match you athlete for athlete, can you still be a productive offense and beat those teams? I think their defense is obviously much improved from the 2022 unit. I suspect they will not give up 60 points to South Carolina at any point this year. And so when you have a defensive line like the one that they have and a secondary that, even though it's a little inexperienced, has played really well, that's a defense that's going to keep you in a lot of games. I don't know. Oklahoma's probably a bad example, but if you score 25 points in that 2022 unit, I don't know how many games you win on the road against top 15 teams in the SEC.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously that D-line is absolutely legit. Defensive front, linebackers really good. So when you look at the landscape right now, David, and I know last time we saw Georgia, they had one of those ugly, struggling games at Kentucky, but at this point, I don't see, a team that's clearly better than others. Like there's some years we have this team that's clearly the best, or maybe there's 2. Who among these teams are in that group at the top would you say is most likely to grow into that? If there is a team that's going to grow into a wagon, so to speak, that's the clear favorite.
Probably Georgia or Texas and probably Ohio State. I think those are the 3 that, just personnel-wise, and the way that they play on the lines. And then obviously with Ohio State, I mean, the backs, the receivers, basically Ohio State's entire roster. But Texas on the lines, and they got to get a little healthy. So I think those 3 kind of jump out to me as teams that, you could see them developing into teams that late November, if you're a Tennessee fan, you're watching them going, I don't know. Bama's kind of a wild card. There's so many variables with that team. A first-year coach. We'll learn a lot about them this weekend. I do think they win. I think it's a tough matchup for Georgia, but I think Georgia's got a higher ceiling.
So, David, the Matthew Sluka situation, we discussed some of your reporting yesterday on the show here with the NIL and the dad coming out and saying, attaching his name to it and calling out members at UNLV there. What do you make of this whole thing, and where do you think this thing here goes from here, specifically with Sluka?
I feel bad for the kid, honestly. I mean, it's a tough situation to be in. You want to play. You want to maximize your value. I mean, this is a guy that probably does not have an NFL future. And so if you got 1 year where you're going to be able to cash in and set yourself up, coming out of college, if I could make, 6 figures my senior year of college and then all of a sudden I just wasn't being paid, that's kind of tough. That can really set you up to have some success moving forward. And so he's in an unenviable spot where, yeah, you're kind of wanting to get that done, but you don't want to quit on your teammates and all that stuff. So you're in a really tough spot. So this is a system that is ripe for producing situations like these because there are no kind of guidelines and the norms are tough, and these collectives are sort of kind of all over the place in how they're funded and how they operate, and then coaches and their relationships with the collectives. It seems like there might have been a breakdown there. So it's a tough situation for everybody, and I think until college football gets to a place where there's more common sense, I always say something resembling employment, something resembling revenue sharing, something resembling a players association, you're going to see probably more situations like these.
So meanwhile, Judge Claudia Wilkins, so she asked for sort of a revision because some of the language in this case, David, is to the effect of still trying to cap NIL money, which again to me is just mind-boggling that we're still talking about that. But so there's no judgment yesterday. There's some back and forth. How do you view that and where it's going from here?
Well, I think we'll have a cap at some point because you have to have something. I don't think you want to get to a baseball situation where, Ohio State's got, kind of where we're at now, where Ohio State's got a bunch of money and other schools have less money. I think we'll get to something resembling a cap, but you have to have a player association or a union or something like that can negotiate, hey, here are the rules of engagement. Right now it is kind of a free for all, and trying to figure all these things out is difficult. So when revenue sharing eventually gets here, that will kind of, I think, give you a sense of like, okay, let's start with this budget here. If you can have money over the top there, maybe that's something you can have. I don't know. I think it's going to be a weird spot for a long time, even after some of that stuff comes in, because just getting to a place where you have a collectively bargained set of rules where the players are in the room, have representatives, and agree to some of these rules is going to be a bit of a hurdle. Association, and instead of, I always tell people, it's a math problem above all else. Instead of 32 rosters of 53 guys, you're going to have 134 rosters of looking like 105 scholarships. That's a lot more guys. So, and trying to get to a place that is a little bit more sensible.
David Oven from The Athletic with us here on Robbie and Rex Road. So, David, we were having this discussion on the show. Travis Hunter, I think you can make a pretty good case, is the best player in college football. What happens in terms of the Heisman Trophy discussion in your mind if Colorado ends up 7-5 or 8-4, but they're not really a factor in the college football playoff? How does that influence the Travis Hunter discussion? Should that influence the Travis Hunter Heisman Trophy discussion?
I mean, I don't think it should. I don't think he has a super acute. I mean, if you look at all the games that they've lost, maybe Stanford last year was the only one that you could point to his play and say, well, that's kind of a reason they didn't win that ball game. I mean, they literally won last week because of a play that he made. I mean, 5 consecutive games with 100 yards. The thing with Travis Hunter, the two-way stuff will probably help him. I don't think it's fair to call it a novelty. It will help him despite the win-loss. I think I just don't have a lot of respect for a lot of Heisman voters who don't take this seriously and don't watch enough. But, I think for me, the biggest thing, the biggest difference from him this year to last year, outside of the health stuff, is his coverage numbers were not good last year. He was beaten a lot. He was not good in coverage if you looked at his numbers and looked at when he was targeted. Here, he's not him. He is an actual lockdown corner this year, on top of being, I think he's top 5, top 6 in the country in receiving yards. He's got, again, I said, 100 yards for 5 straight games. That's a school record for him. So I think that, playing on a team that people do watch a lot and being a two-way guy, I think will help him with some of the Heisman voters who, have to be held against their will to vote for anybody other than the best quarterback on the best team, which is a frustrating dynamic, all over again. I think when you have people making the case that Stetson Bennett is the best player in college football, I'm just like, guys, what are we doing? What are we doing? So I hope that those things aren't held against him. I hope people watch the games. I mean, he's definitely in the mix. There's a lot of football left. At this point, he'd probably get my vote because he's just been unbelievable. And I think for me, the maturation from a high football IQ playmaker defensively to an actual lockdown corner, in addition to still being improved as an offensive player, is pretty astounding, man. We just have not seen this. At all. I can't remember. I think my podcast producer noted this, but the year that Charles Woodson won the Heisman and people pointed to him as a two-way player, I think he had 111 yards receiving that year.
Yeah. Yeah, he was a
that's
returner.
Novelty.
Yeah,
That's novelty. Travis Hunter is one of the best receivers in college football and one of the best corners. And if you wanted to make the case, he's the best at both. I mean, he was not one of the best corners in college football last year. He just wasn't. He made some plays. This year, he's in that mix. It's unbelievable to watch.
well, I totally agree with you. Now, of course, Woodson was on the number 1 undefeated team, right? So, and he was incredibly dominant as a corner. He erased half the field. But you're right. I mean, he wasn't a true two-way player. With Hunter, not only do you have all these, I mean, like the fact that you have a physical tackle that forces a fumble to clinch a game is now part of his season too, right? Like that play is a game-winning play. So I'm with you. I'm sure you and I have talked about this, but like I still get angry when I think about 2009 because Ndamukong Suh was clearly the best player in college football. And that's how I voted. But, you know, I don't even remember where he ended up, but he wasn't close to winning, and he should have won.
I think Toby Gerhart got more votes than Sue that year. I mean, it is what it is. Like, I didn't have a vote at the time. I was a bit of a young buck. But man,
that's right. I'm old AF. I forgot.
Yeah, you are old, Joe. I'm sorry to tell you this. I don't know if you've been informed, but yeah, that's the most frustrating Heisman situation. I think that one and Stetson getting to New York. Listen, I like Stetson Bennett as much as the next guy, but like, I think it really just is frustrating that like, guys, watch the games. Like to me, when it comes down to the Heisman, I kind of pointed to a couple things. One, how acute was your impact on your team's win-loss record? Two, how much did you just make me say, wow? And how did you perform in the biggest games? I mean, those are kind of the three things that I really factor in to the voting. It's an inexact science, but I take it pretty seriously. And I think a lot of people just, I don't know some of these voters, man. Some of these voters, people that turn in their ballots before championship weekend. So these people that like watch a guy throw for 300 yards in the SEC championship and they're like, well, we got to vote for that guy now. It's like, no, you don't. Like, watch the games, guys. This is why I think the Heisman should go from like 900 voters to like 100. But, nobody asks me.
David, great stuff, man. Really appreciate you taking time to be with us. Enjoy this weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. David Ubben from The Athletic, our guest. We got kind of like a mini Ubben rant there to set up the
I like it. Man, I absolutely. That's a great rant, and I am here for it all the way, man. Voting for awards in general, like, can be frustrating, but especially again, like you said, 900 Heisman voters, man, and a couple hundred at least are just completely just gristle on the stake. Just cut them off.
We'll have the Rex Rant with Joe Rexroad coming up next. You're listening to Robbie and Rexroad, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robbie and Rex Road.
This is so frustrating. He's kind of ugly, though.
We're the Tennessee Oilers, gonna get all over you. Yeah, the Tennessee Oilers. Here we go.
It is that time of the day, time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rex Road. Sometimes I just like to let this song play a little bit. Just beautiful. Love it. Shout out to 1997. Rex Road, the floor is yours. I turn things over to you.
That's a jam. That's a jam. I got to say, look, I this is not my rant, but just a quick aside. Not a huge country music fan, like as we know, but I like some. But it's like I'm watching these Morgan Wallen concert. Like walking up, and it's like and he's getting all excited. I mean, I think it's cool how he does it. He walks through the tunnel and he has whoever. Like when he was here, he had DeAndre Hopkins and whoever else with him, right?
Yeah.
And the other night in Knoxville, he's got Brew McCoy and he's got Nico, and of course he's got Peyton Manning in full uniform, and he's got Heupel, and it's like they running in, everyone's like, oh, it's like building up and stuff, and like I'm thinking in terms of like Metallica's coming, right? Like I've seen Metallica once, I'm gonna have to see them when they come to Nashville, maybe even go to Blacksburg for it, but like concert. So it's like all building up, like yeah, and then he comes out. I'm like, well, what is that? I know that was a terrible representation of Morgan Wallen's music. But anyway, now if you played that song, though, if that was your opening song with the Tennessee Oilers, now that would get them freaking roll. That would keep the momentum going.
The house would come down.
Yeah. So I want to play a commercial. This would be better if you're just I guess if you're just listening, or even if you're watching, you just have to deal with the audio of this. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this commercial. There is a new Will Levis Hellman's Mayo commercial. Now, well, we can talk about all the particulars after this, but this is I think the audio is still good enough to play with the video. It's absolutely spectacular, but let's play Will Levis's new mayonnaise commercial.
Mayo team, make haste. And your dip, bring out the best taste. Num num. Mayo delicious dip, be served hot, while your quarterback plays it cool. Impressive. Mayo dip, be creamy, and your quarterback dreamy. Oh hey. Mayo game face, be as vicious as your buffalo chicken dip is delicious.
There you go.
Was that it?
That's it.
Okay. So, again, this commercial is better with the whole thing, but I got to say, watching the Titans, I think it was last game, but it was right after Levis, I think the pick six, and then those no bull commercials are just running rampant on the Titans broadcast.
Yes.
And it's like, the timing on this. But I got to say, folks, take Will Levis, take his mistakes, take your concerns about him, take all of it, take the football and put it aside, compartmentalize it. Do not make fun of this man for these amazing mayonnaise commercials. These are freaking fantastic, and he does not deserve to take any crap for them. And by the way, he filmed that commercial. That was all filmed before. So we all liked, for the most part, I'm sure Stillman was like, "Yeah, I want you to study film." But I mean, for the most part, right? Like we all enjoyed it before the season because it's preseason and nothing bad is happening. Well, he filmed this commercial at the same time, and I know, I haven't seen it, but I'm sure people are flipping out because not miracle flipping, but flipping out about him. Oh, great! Look at our quarterback; he's turning it over left and right, and look at what he's doing. Well, he filmed this before the season. Also, I think this goes exactly with a point I made back then, which is, if you're Will Levis, you don't know how long this is lasting.
Yeah.
You get paid. However people want to pay you, get paid. He's making fun of himself and having fun. There is absolutely nothing negative about these commercials. Don't say anything bad about them. They're awesome. Leave them alone.
I will say, if you'd have spent more time maybe in the film room in the offseason rather than showing up to the shoot, maybe you'd know not to roll the ball on the ground to Tajay Spears. You ever thought about that?
I mean, yeah. I mean, maybe next time you have a turkey sandwich, try a little mustard. Maybe you're eating a little bit too much mayo on your sandwiches. How about that?
No,
Maybe you're
I will say I saw this come out, and my first thought was, hey, you know what? Good for him, because I don't know how many more of these this is gonna have for you there, buddy. I mean, good for you, dude. You just eat this up while you can.
Yeah, look, I mean, seriously though, like, in all seriousness, like this is if you have any chance, like if any of us were in this position, okay. First of all, the perma rant on if you spend your free time doing something that like people see publicly, then they get mad. But if you spend your free time sitting around watching TV or sitting there on your phone that people don't see, I guess they assume you're working hard.
Yeah.
You know, it's yeah. The guy has a chance to make some money. There is nothing wrong with this. His performance is not adversely affected by doing this mayonnaise commercial. I promise you. There is no adverse effect. The only adverse effect is if he now does listen to social media, which he, just like everybody claims that they don't listen to social media and you turn it off. I hope he's telling the truth. A lot of people say that and they're not.
Yeah.
That's the adverse effect, is then you get even more crap than you were before. But you know, let the kid have fun. My God.
I got a texter going on top of this that says, you can't take the Vols seriously. Nico and Hypo out at a Morgan Wallen concert. These guys should be studying film at all times, and when they're not, it really calls into question the type of season they're going to have.
Yeah, I mean, like Peyton, you can go out there with your little pads on and roll around on the stage or whatever, but man, where's the film study from these other guys? I mean, I know it's the idle or off week, but still, Arkansas is dangerous. What about the study table? Something.
Hypo was talking about
Wasting
playing
their
golf
time
this weekend, which, by the way, good luck with all the courses going to be waterlogged. But you're going to spend a Saturday playing golf. You ain't going to watch any film. You're not going to go out doing any recruiting. What are we doing here?
Wow. Well, we know what's going to happen to them then the rest of the season. Down the tubes. I hope that no one is seriously like arguing with me on this right now, or else I'm going to have to go on an absolute text storm.
So far, I think we're all good. Josh in Kentucky on the text line says that commercial has proved one thing. Levis definitely has a future in television after football. Some folks wouldn't mind if that future started sooner rather than later. This is from Josh in Kentucky on the text line.
Hey, that's fine. Again, you can be mad about the football he's playing right now. You know, absolutely. It's just so Jackson has, here we go. Maybe focus on doing your job you get paid millions for before you spend time in the offseason on this crap.
Here we go.
It's not a good look when you come out and say you should have spent more time rewiring your brain this offseason. So Jackson, if you're serious and you're not trolling us, you will have the dumbest text of the day. Congratulations. Yes, spent more time rewiring your brain. Is he actually a robot? He's like C-3PO, where you like take the face off. You're like, oh no, the turnover wire. I got a little bit pressed here. Come on, dude.
A lot of Star Wars shout outs on the show this week. We'll have Teron Davenport coming up next. Take your thoughts on the Titans. 615-737-1025. Join Jared Stillman, Chris Sanders, and Derek Mason at Twin Peaks in Madison for a Monday Night Football edition of the pregame show from 4 to 6. They'll break down the Titans Week 4 matchup against the Dolphins, give you the latest updates before the game. The pregame show presented by Parma Tractor and Equipment, Sundeck Nashville, Sloan's Motorcycle ATV, and award-winning Blue Note Juke Joint and Blue Note Crossroads Bourbon. This is Robbie and Rex Road, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
ESPN's Turon Davenport, Talking Titans. Now, on Robbie and Rex Road, on ESPN, 1025 The Game, and the Game Nashville app.
It is that time of the week. Teron Davenport with us here on the program. Covers the Titans for ESPN. Also host of Talking with TD. We go to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And welcome in TD to the program. Teron, good morning. How are you?
Hey, good morning. What's going on?
Not a lot, man. Appreciate you taking time to be with us. TD, how surprised were you that the Packers were able to run the ball as effectively as they did against the Titans? And what do you make of that matchup this week for the Titans trying to stop the Dolphins' rushing attack with their quarterback situation?
Yeah, no, I was definitely surprised. I mean, 73 of it coming from Malik Willis, and he had the most rushing yards by a Packers quarterback since Don Mikowski in 1990. So
legend.
That says a lot.
Magic Man.
Yeah. So, but I mean, you look at what they were able to do, and I talked to Kenneth Murray Jr. about it yesterday. Just the way that they're, able to try to, get you out of your gaps, and that's something that they did. And other times, man, like they hit those edges, and they found success there, and that's something that this week is going to be interesting, seeing how that goes against the Dolphins, because they have track runners at running back and they like to get outside, but they're not finding the same degree of success this year that they did last year. So we'll see.
Yeah, that is an interesting. Obviously, the quarterback situation is, to me, makes this a game that the Titans, that's attainable for sure for the Titans, and they need it badly, but also just this style of defense and what they do in general, TD, against what the Dolphins do. Like what is the key to you in that matchup, or if there's a matchup in there that you would say is key?
Oh, well, of course, if you're talking about offense versus defense overall, I mean, it's the Tyreek Hill and L'Jarius Sneed. But if you focus on the run game, it will be just the wide zone against the Titans' struggles to set that edge. Most of the runs that have been successful against the Titans have been on the outside. So it kind of plays right into what the Dolphins want to do, but let's see if the emphasis on setting the edge will produce results on Monday.
TD, not a ton to be excited or happy about if you're a Titans fan, really all year, but certainly last week against the Packers. One thing was DeAndre Hopkins getting a little bit more involved and back into the fold. How good was that to see, and how much more do you think that could be the case for them as they move forward here?
Yeah, I think if you're a Titans fan, you're excited about that because you know that's where Will Levis, he excels. And they're going back to the scene where Hopkins, he really helped Levis, right? And we're talking about, Levis, his only 300-yard passing game. So it's definitely good. It's something for Titans fans to be excited about. But the thing is, the next progression, right, is to have that show up, but not at the cost of Calvin Ridley not being productive, right? You got to get both. You got both guys, get production from both of them.
So we talked a lot this week, TD, not just this week, but I think it gets more and more as things go, and Will Levis keeps making, killer mistakes. Even if the pick six, it was not nearly the mistake of what he did the first 2 weeks. But we've talked a lot about just the balance for Brian Callahan of like the locker room, these guys working hard, trying to win. And if the quarterback is the one that keeps costing them games, how much do you take that into consideration? Let me ask you this, because to me, it's like, I understand, and I've heard D. Mace and Chris Sanders this week talk about, the danger of losing the locker room, but also like, I guess if I was Brian Callahan, I could seriously almost defer a little bit. Like organizationally, this season is also like you are talking about the potential gigantic financial investment or not in this player, and so you have to take that time and you have to give that runway. Is that a viable, like, even discussion point for a coach and a locker room when it's like when there is a bigger picture beyond this team's results?
Yeah, it's something that he has to think about, but I don't know if that's something that he could tell Tyler Boyd, right? Who is playing on a 1-year deal. You know what I mean? Like, forget that. Like, I got to worry about, my future. And I'm putting work in, and I came here with the understanding that it was going to be this, this, and this. So, yeah, I mean, I understand that, but there's different values. You know what I mean? So it's tough. The good thing right now is it's funny to say it's good, but they're losing for reasons other than the quarterback, right? Like he's contributing to it, but there's other things that you could point to and say, hey, they got to get that together too. So that's one of what happens, right? In talking to some of the defensive players, you know, when I ask them about Will Levis himself, and they're like, hey, man, like, you know, we got to get him in better position by getting turnovers. We got to stop teams from running on us the way that they did. So that mindset that these guys have is going to, for now, and I stress for now, because it's inevitable that there's going to be a time where they lose a game and it's on the strength of Levis or you know what I mean? So for now, you know, these guys are they're even keeled and they're not looking at, you know, hey, this guy is costing us the game.
So how much of this city will be on fire, TD, if they get down to Miami on Monday night, lose that game, fall to 0-4 heading into the bye week?
Yeah, man. 4-alarm blaze. I guess you could call it that. No, I mean, look, that's another thing some of the guys are talking about, you know, how this game, you know, winning this game could be a launching point for them. So it's you split the season in quarters traditionally, right, with the old way of, you know, 16 games. And, I mean, to go 0-4 in the first quarter of the season is tough. And, you know, to have that stewing into the bye, that would be really bad for them. So you definitely look at that and you say, hey, they have to win this game. It's one of those early must wins for them.
At right tackle, TD. I'm of the opinion that I understand Nicholas Petit-Frere has struggled a ton. There's no question, and that one sack in particular was a bad look. I think it will absolutely get worse if they go to Jalen Duncan, based on what I've seen from him. I just so you know, at this point, I mean, to me, the decision should be Petit-Frere still, but there, you know, there are. I mean, other than going to get a Chris Hubbard, or is it in your mind viable, even though Dylan Radins all off season has been told you're a guard, you're the right guard, all that stuff, and he's got that job. Is that at some point a consideration? Do you think, like a Radins bump out and a Brunskill at right guard?
I personally don't do that, right? And you look at some of the comments coming from the guys last week, right? Hey, we're finally getting to a point where, you know, we're getting comfortable with the technique we're being coached. Okay. Imagine getting comfortable and then someone saying, hey, you know what? Forget all that stuff that I taught you. You got to do it this way at this position. And I think that's what you put Dylan Radins up to if you do that. So me personally, no, I don't do that. You're right about Petit-Frere. He should stay there over Duncan. I mean, when Duncan came in, I mean, there was, granted, the effort on the strip sack wasn't good from Petit-Frere, but dang, man, did you see the couple sacks that Jalen Duncan gave up? So it's like,
yes,
you go for that's a tough situation. And I would say this, and I'm not trying to, you know, be a sunny side up type of guy or anything like that, but there were a couple snaps, a couple reps against Rashawn Gary where you're like, okay, Petit-Frere, I see. But, you know, the effort has to be there, play in and play out. And then the give a damn part of it. I mean, look, you get benched, I get it. Nobody likes it. But, put your helmet on the sideline. Like, that's not acceptable. So that's something that, you know, me as a coach, I would have a problem with that. But I still think that, you know, they should go with him this week again.
Yep, very well said. TD, great stuff as always, man. Really appreciate you taking time to be with us, and have yourself a good time in Miami.
Yeah, for sure, man. Appreciate it, man. Hopefully this weather, you know, gets a little better.
Yes, no doubt about that. Teron Davenport joins us every Friday morning at 8 o'clock here on the program. We'll continue to take your thoughts on the Titans. We'll have Pigskin Pick 'em coming up at 8:30. All that ahead. Robbie and Rex Road, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robbie and Rex Road, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Tune in to 94.9 The Fan tomorrow at 6:30 for our college football game of the week. Georgia taking on Alabama, presented by Twin Peaks Restaurants. Take your tailgate to Twin Peaks, home of 29-degree drafts and wall-to-wall sports. By the way, I got some tickets to give away. A pair of tickets to see the Preds take on the Tampa Bay Lightning at Bridgestone Arena tomorrow. Be caller 3, 615-737-1025. 615-737-1025. Caller 3 will win a pair of tickets to see the Preds take on the Lightning at Bridgestone Arena coming up tomorrow. By the way, real quickly, speaking of the Preds, Joe, as far as I know, the game tonight between the Preds and the Lightning is still on as scheduled down in Tampa Bay. Now, I don't know if there's going to be an announcement at some point, if that's going to be called off or not, but at the moment, there has been nothing that has been said about the status of the Tampa and Nashville game tonight.
That's really interesting. I mean, I know it hit land northwest of there in the Big Bend, right? So, yes. I mean, but I also know, like, my relatives down in Venice, which is south of Tampa, have a whole bunch of water, but not until after Phyllis Pratt and my mom watched the Tigers with an incredible comeback against the Devil Rays to get the magic number to 2. I'll have you know. Robbie, I want to say one thing to all of you on the YouTube chat and in the text line driven by WilsonCountyHoney.com. If you have an issue with my Mayo take on Levis, may your Wi-Fi blow up and not work for the rest of the day. I would like to say that, okay? Yes, thank you. Jackson, okay, so Jackson comes at me. I gotta respond to Jackson, okay? And he says, "Love you, Joe." Levi's autocorrect said it himself that maybe he should have focused more on that rewiring the brain this offseason. Yes, in retrospect, Jackson, after throwing the terrible pick, he talked about. I thought it was a really interesting comment about rewiring the brain, right? And he's focused on the offense and things like this, and he's trying to just talk about like how he should like not turn it over, right? But like, what does that mean? Is it like 3 hours a day that you punch yourself in the head so that you stop turning it over before the season?
In a season where
Mayo commercial.
Well, also in a coming off a year where he really didn't do that last year, right?
Right.
He didn't. There were no bowling ball turnovers last year that we saw.
I promise you, for all these people in the NFL, they have free time. So if your free time is spent making yourself money doing a national commercial for a national brand of condiment, you should do that.
Or you could study film.
Or you could try to reach your hand into your brain. I mean, but I love you too, Jackson.
Yeah. Jackson does ask a very good question in response to all that stuff that the TD said. If it ain't ratings, what's the plan? Jalen Duncan absolutely worse than Petit Frere, and clearly Petit Frere is not the answer. I tend to kind of lean more towards the Jackson thinking. Now, granted, you and Kuharski both were a little bit higher on Petit Frere heading into the year than I was. I did not expect him to be this freaking bad.
Now you're trying to distance yourself. Look at you. You're trying to join Jim.
There's no distancing. I mean, I could pull up the audio clip of us arguing about this with Kuharski a few months ago. If you want me to.
I forgot. I have old brain.
All right. I'll go find it. But the point is, like, I didn't expect him to be this bad. Is he this bad? Like, is this what he is? Or is it just been 2 brutal games in a row? Like, is there reclamation to be done with Petit Frere? Because I've said it all week, and I stand by it. If there's not, then I don't know what they do. Because I don't see a good solution. Jalen Duncan is not a solution. I don't know that anything that Dylan Radins has showed us about playing right tackle in the league is a solution. I mean, I guess you could get creative after that and either go to try to sign someone off somebody else's practice squad, which, my God, I'm tired about talking about, signing players off practice squads to try to come and improve the Titans roster. I guess you could do that, or you could try Brunskill out there. But the bottom line is, like, if it ain't Petit Frere, the options are awful. It's not good.
Yeah, I mean, look, TD made great points there on the Radins idea, and I agree. Yeah, to me, I'm scrounging for ideas.
But you may not have a choice, right? Like, if it's this bad with Petit Frere, you may not have a choice. You might have to do that at some point.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. Look, if you want to talk about percentage of snaps that are horrific, I promise you Duncan's a much higher percentage than Petit Frere. And I know it's way fewer snaps, but it's not going to happen. Petit Frere, obviously it's been bad. I mean, to me, that's what he should start Monday, and he is the better option than Jalen Duncan. And then beyond that, I think you may hate it, but I think the practice squad signing thing may end up having to be the thing. If they're not going to do that with Radens, it's just, I mean, the thing about Radens is he has played it, and then of course Brunskill has started and has played. I mean, like Brunskill getting some kind of look somewhere seems like it could be an option at some point. I mean, the guy has played. He wasn't terrible last year.
He was not.
No, man,
But apparently the coaching staff doesn't like it all that much.
Yeah, I mean, it's the most hopeful situation is still, to me, like Petit Frere figuring it out enough to be serviceable, but obviously he was pretty far from that last game. And like TD said, I mean, you could find snaps that were good, but I mean, you could also go back and find Dillard snaps that were good, but then you have the 3 disastrous ones every game, and that's critical in the outcome.
Megan says it's not often you get to see Titans players in a TV commercial. We don't get to enjoy the Derrick Henry ones anymore now that he's gone. I absolutely love these Mayo commercials. This is from Megan on the text line.
Thank you, Megan. I mean, it's just like you should, like in all seriousness, like just see it for what it is, And again, it's like Will Levis may soon be somebody's backup quarterback in the NFL, and he probably isn't doing Mayo and no bull commercials then. So I like no one else would do any different. Jackson says, I think the answer on how to rewire the brain is obviously a darkness retreat in ayahuasca. Well, that does take time. That would actually take more time than probably the day of filming Mayo commercials. If Aaron Rodgers can put you in a cave for 3 days and, just see where things go. So I guess that would be a rewiring of the brain technique that would take some time.
So Joe, we have not spent hardly any time this week because quite frankly, I've not been able to bring myself to do it, to break down the Titans and Dolphins matchup. We've not spent a whole lot of time doing that. We will have all day on Monday to do that, just for the record, because they will not have played football yet. But
that's right.
Let me throw it to you this way. I threw this out there to TD. I'll ask it to you. Titans get out there on Monday Night Football, however it goes, and they lose the game to Miami. What are we talking about on Tuesday morning? What's the reaction of this Titans fan base if they are 0-4 heading into the bye week?
Well, I mean, so you're talking 0-4. So you're talking about your off or idle. Both are acceptable week after that. And so you're talking about it's going to be bad for us, Robbie, because like it or not, the text line is going to start throwing out quarterbacks in the draft.
Yes,
it already has. It already has.
Yes, I've just actively ignored them. Yes.
Well, I know. But with that extra time, and then you don't even have like a game to talk about that week, that's where things are going. I mean, and look, I mean, the Colts, to me, the Colts-Titans game right now, as I look at it, is a toss-up. But then you absolutely, if you lose to the Dolphins, you are absolutely in a position where you could easily be 0-7 because we know the Bills and Lions trips are coming up. And I think the way those teams are playing, this team would take something pretty remarkable for it to win. So then all of a sudden we're talking about 0-7. And if we get to 0-7, Robbie, I mean, I don't know, man.
The Levis
we need the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, right. Like again, how do they get to 0-7? Maybe Levis throws for 300 in every game, doesn't turn it over, but all this other stuff happens, right? But that's probably not likely. Like if he plays well without turnovers, like if he plays well without turnovers Monday, then I think they'll win. Like I don't think the Dolphins with their quarterback situation, and again, they kind of haven't had the same success in a lot of stuff that like TD was saying. How much of that is quarterback? I don't know, but I think if Levis has a good game Monday night like he did last year, I think Titans will win there.
Let's go back to our 1025 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Welcome in Wes in Hermitage. Wes, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Morning, fellas. I know MPF is bad, PT, MPF, whatever you want to call the guy. And I'm so done with bringing in practice squad players too. But I'm going to keep banging this drum, and no one's been able to give me an answer. Why have we not called Chris Hubbard? That is an answer that I think would really, really help this offensive line. There's a lot of connections there. Even TD couldn't tell me why we haven't made a call to him yet. Is there anybody else besides him, or is there a reason as to why we're not calling him, or what's the deal here?
Yeah, thanks for the call, Wes. I couldn't tell you specifically why they haven't done it. Now, my response to that in general would say, yes, Chris Hubbard has helped them before. Chris Hubbard is also at the moment on a practice squad in an NFL team in a league where it's hard to find a ton of good offensive tackles. So what does that tell you?
Yeah, exactly.
Like Chris Hubbard has been good. Could he be better than Nicholas Petit-Frere right now? Yeah, I guess. I don't know how you could be a whole lot worse. And he's also 33. So what does that part of it look like? I would hope that if the Titans felt like Chris Hubbard could help them and could be the starter, that they would have made a phone call.
Yeah, we talked about it earlier, and I get it. I mean, I'm not opposed to the idea. I say, search the earth.
Yeah,
for a right tackle. But how many teams have backups that they desperately don't on their active roster that they desperately don't want to see the field? I mean, every team does. The Titans have one in Jalen Duncan, which is like why I still can't believe for a second he's going to start Monday night. And every team has that. There is a shortage of good offensive linemen. So if that guy is on the practice squad for a team that it isn't exactly like the greatest offensive line in the NFL anyway, that probably tells you there's some diminishing of his game or his health or whatever. Again, that's just my guess.
Yeah,
but I'm
Give
not
him a call.
opposed to. Yeah, sure.
Look, any solution that you think could be better than what you have right now, I'm open to trying. Let's quickly go back to our 102.5 The Game phone line. Welcome in Doug. Doug, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, thanks, guys. Just had a quick question. The phrase this NFL's a business is always thrown out at different times. And if we look at this like a business, if a new manager, we'll call Bill Callahan the new manager, is brought into a business, he's not just going to go in there and immediately fire everybody because he has sales and things to fulfill and put out. So is it the natural thing to look around and see with what you have first, maybe move some of those pieces around? Hey, I think this might be a better sales manager than this person. Try to use that analogy, if you will, to move those pieces around to actually see what you have before going in and actually cleaning house. So I don't know the timeline of when Bill was actually hired to when they hired a lot of these free agents, but how much say did he have in some of these? Or did he just have comments after they were all on the roster? And he said, yeah, I've seen tape on him. He looks like a good player. Yeah, I've seen tape on him. He looks like a good player. And this is just what he's been dealt.
Yep. Thanks for the call, Doug. Well, certainly Latham was Callahan's guy. They brought in, obviously Cushenberry, and I would assume Callahan had a role in that. Other than that, it's a lot of guys that have been here. Skronsky was already here. Radens was already here. Nicholas Petit-Frere was already here. And then the question becomes, should they have done more in one offseason? But for sure, the Cushenberry and Latham, I'm sure Bill Callahan was heavily involved.
Yes, the new guys, and moving forward, you can absolutely expect whoever they acquire to be absolutely. Offensive line coaches have input anyway, right? Position coaches have input, but I think Bill Callahan's word and his evaluation counts more, and it should. But yeah, some of these guys coming in. In all seriousness, Stilly, I hope Stilly's listening. Look, I thought Petit-Frere could be serviceable. He has not been yet. And so the right tackle pickings were slim, but you can look back in retrospect and say, man, maybe they should have, instead of this or that move, should have tried with somebody to just add to the group. Someone brings up Sadiq Charles in the YouTube chat. There's a guy they brought in who didn't work out at all, but that was also kind of a weird situation.
We'll have Pigskin Pick 'em coming up next. We'll take your thoughts as well on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Robbie and Rex Road, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robbie and Rex Road, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rex Road, Nick Keyser, intern Robert here with you on this Friday morning. It is that time of the week, time for Pigskin Pick'em here on the program. Joe Rex Road, I was not here for this last week. I did send in my picks, a standings update in the competition.
Yeah, and you had a good week. You went 4-2. I went 4-2. Nick went 3-3. None of us got our locks. So standings. Wait, is that right? Am I looking at last week's? God, I'm already really good at this. So standings right now. I'm 15-9, 3-1 on my locks, 18 points. Nick is 14-10, 3-1 on his locks, 17 points. Robbie, 12-12, you're up to 500, 1-3 on your locks, 13 points. So we got a good competition, and overall, doing quite well.
Doing quite well. So make sure you're tuned into this every week. The experts, in quotation marks, talking football. Georgia taking on Alabama this weekend. That is where we begin. Georgia is on the road, and they are a 1.5-point favorite on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Joe Rexrod, you are in first place. So we begin with you. Georgia, a 1.5-point favorite against Alabama.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the home team here. And, it's interesting. If I'm right and Alabama wins a really good close game, we are going to start talking about Georgia's playoff situation because they have a brutal schedule that still includes a trip to Texas, a trip to Ole Miss, and a visit from Tennessee. I don't want to be prisoner of the moment with Georgia's last game because that happens, and then sometimes they'll turn it after that. But I just like the way Milroe's playing, and I think Kalen DeBoer gets his first big win as Alabama's coach.
Nick Keyser,
win, I guess.
Georgia taking on Alabama on the road. Georgia, a 1.5-point favorite.
I think the Bulldogs roll, fellas. I really do. I think there'll be a fun game to watch for sure. I don't think DeBoer gets his first big win against them just yet. Yeah, so give me the Bulldogs.
I'll go Georgia minus 1.5 as well. We move to the Titans and the Dolphins. Dolphins also a 1.5-point favorite in this contest. Nick Keyser, you were up first.
Something tells me Snoop Huntley will get the job done. So give me the Dolphins plus the 1.5 on Monday Night Football.
I don't know how many more opportunities, Joe, I'm going to have to do this year. So give me the Tennessee Titans plus 1.5. I think the Titans are going to go down there and they're going to get their first win of the year. I'll take the Titans plus the 1.5. Joe Rexrode, Dolphins are favored by 1.5.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just think with the quarterback situation and the desperation level of the Titans, they have not yet, hit the psychological skids. They got to have this, and I think they'll get it.
We have 4 individual picks in the competition today. Joe Rexrode, your first individual selection.
Yeah, I'm looking at this one, and I know sometimes we can say Vegas knows. But I'm looking at Arizona at Utah. Utah -8 at home against Arizona. I know Utah, we're not sure about Rising playing in the quarterback situation. You got Zach Wilson's little brother. It doesn't matter. They're going to bomb Arizona. Arizona has a fantastic first-round receiver and not much else. Give me Utah and make it my lock.
Guarantee. Lock it down. Utah -8 against Arizona. Nick Keyser, your first individual selection.
Yeah, last week this team was good to me, and they take on Virginia Tech this weekend. Give me the Miami Hurricanes -17.5 over the Hokies.
So Miami -17.5 against Virginia Tech. With my first pick, I will go Oklahoma rebounding against Auburn. I'll take Oklahoma -1.5 against Auburn on the road. I think Oklahoma will have just enough offense in this one to get it done. Nick Keyser, your second individual selection.
Going to stick over in college football. Give me Lane Kiffin over Vandegrift and his first road start for the Wildcats this weekend, and I'm locking down on Ole Miss being a 15.5-point favorite over the Kentucky Wildcats.
So Ole Miss -15.5 against Kentucky. For my second pick, I just don't think this team has enough offense. So I will go USC -14.5 against Wisconsin. Another classic Big Ten matchup for the Trojans. USC versus Michigan last week, taking on Wisconsin this week. Give me the Trojans -14.5 against Wisconsin. Joe Rexrode, your second individual selection.
Michelle Perry, have you listened to what your successor is saying about your Wildcats? I just want to point it out. All right, I'm going to stick in college too. Illinois at Penn State. Now, Bert, our guy Brett Bielan, this thing's like whiteout energy, whatever the hell that means. So I guess people are taking that as like Baltimore material. But Penn State minus 19.5. I think Penn State will win, and they'll probably win by about 10 to 14. But man, 19.5. Yes, I will take those points for a team with a good defense in Illinois.
So going with Illinois plus the 19.5 against Penn State. For my third pick, give me the Pittsburgh Steelers minus 1.5 against the Colts and make it my lock. I don't think Colts are very good. I'm still not overly convinced about how good Pittsburgh is, but I think they're definitely good enough to totally shut down Anthony Richardson in this game. So I'll go Steelers minus the 1.5, locking down against the Indianapolis Colts. Joe Rexrode, your third individual selection.
All right, I'm going to the NFL. Bengals at Panthers. Oh, my gosh, the Red Rifle can get after his old team.
Yes.
Panthers are plus 4.5 at home against the Bengals. Kind of like the Titans. The Bengals are 0-3. The difference is the Bengals are still a playoff quality team with a great quarterback. Give me the Bengals. Give me the Bengals minus a 4.5. I'm good for Dalton that he had a good game, but this is going to be a comfortable Bengals win.
Nick, he's your third individual selection.
In my final college pick, and this is courtesy of our intern Robert behind me. So Ohio State minus 23.5 over Michigan State. Joe Rexrode, the dominant win for Ohio State. Robert adds as well.
Wow. So going minus the 23.5 against Michigan State.
I do not disagree.
Well, kick us off then, Joe, with your fourth pick, your fourth and final individual selection.
All right, I'm sticking with the NFL. Vikings at Packers, Robbie.
Yes.
Packers minus 3. The Packers are going to absolutely humble the Vikings. The Vikings are totally headed for a humbling this week. We're all loving Darnold and Brian Flores' defense. Packers are going to kick their butt. This was almost my lock, but I feel great about the Packers.
Malik? Is he playing?
No, I'm counting on Jordan Love to play. What are you telling me?
Yeah, I think Jordan Love's going to play. Nick Keyser, your final individual selection.
Just to add to a crazy weekend, I'm actually going against you, Joe. So give me the Vikings plus 3. I think Sam Darnold will come out and look just as good as he has in the first few weeks. Leads the league with passing touchdowns. Not that it means too much early on, but he has looked really good. So maybe he keeps rolling. But I feel pretty confident in JJ and Sam Darnold to get the job done over the Packers.
Be quiet. All right. Okay. That's enough. That's enough of all that.
All right. I like it.
We all know that Kirk Cousins does his best work when he's counted out. The Falcons are 1-2. They're a 1.5 point favorite against the Saints. Kirk Cousins not letting them go to 1-3. Give me the Falcons minus 1.5 in a nice NFC South divisional matchup against the New Orleans Saints. Joe Rexrode.
I love it. That's right. Captain Kirk. Don't count him out, baby.
We'll have our final thoughts. We'll get into some college football as well. Coming up next, break down Alabama and Georgia. Take your thoughts on that. Your thoughts on the Titans and the Dolphins and this weekend of action with the NFL. All that next. Robbie and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Tune in to the Chase and Big Joe show from 9 to 11 a.m. for your chance to win all-inclusive tickets in the Eurostone Club, the WWE Friday Night SmackDown at Bridgestone Arena, coming up on Friday, October the 4th. Contest presented by Green Trees, a family-owned cannabis company and dispensary providing high-quality legal THC products. Check them out online at greentreescompany.com. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexroad, Nick Keyser, intern Robert here with you. Joe, final thoughts before we head into the weekend. No Tennessee, no Vanderbilt this weekend, both with bye weeks. Georgia and Alabama headlining college football tomorrow. Georgia taking on Alabama on the road. You picked Bama? I'm picking Georgia. What do you make of that matchup? And if Alabama does pull off, I guess technically what is an upset, even though it's a 1.5-point spread, what has to go right for them?
Yeah, it's a great matchup. It's a fascinating matchup and great to talk about with Tennessee and Vandy Idle. And you know, I do hesitate a little bit because Georgia has had stinkers before against Kentucky, and then like the next time they play, it's like, oh, okay, I guess they're all right after all. Kentucky just has a thing at home against Georgia and mucking up these games, you know. So I mean, I could definitely see Georgia going in there and winning. I like what Milroe is doing. I like what that Alabama offense looks like. I like the aggression. You know, you were at the Wisconsin game, Robbie. I think one difference I've seen, positive difference. Yes, I'm saying that DeBoer is better than Saban.
There we
Yes,
go.
that's what I'm saying. No, I'm not saying that. But like that drive right before the half at Wisconsin, I was like, man, you know, that's a little bit different. That's a little bit of that, you know, former defunct, now defunct Pac-12 kind of mindset, you know, go out there and wing it around and be aggressive, whereas maybe Saban doesn't do that. I think Kalen DeBoer is good for Jalen Milroe, and I think after this week, Jalen Milroe is going to be a very talked about Heisman candidate.
Well, look, he played great against Wisconsin. And look, Wisconsin does not have a quarterback, and particularly now that the starting quarterback went down, I mean, their offense just had no chance against Alabama's defense in that game. But they do have pretty good defense, and I thought Milroe was fantastic in that game. So, like, when they can hold on to the ball, like when they're not dropping the ball all over the place like they were against USF, and the penalties were a big problem, like their offense is good, and they can move the football. I mean, that Ryan Williams kid is unbelievable at the age of 17. So, like, they've got the ability to score. I'm really interested to see, like, can Milroe against that defense in that environment in a big game situation, can he take care of the ball? Like, can he take care of the ball against Georgia? Because if he can, then they're going to have a really good chance to win this game. You can't have repeats of what we saw against South Florida where they're fumbling the ball left and right all over the place and you got penalty trouble.
And I do hope that we're going to have, I hope and I think, you know, we're going to have like a little bit more maybe of a fun up and down game than sometimes you might expect. I just, you know, I still think Georgia has a ton of skill on offense. And I just don't know with either of these defenses if they're going to end up being great, you know, great Georgia. I mean, like Georgia has lots of talent, but they don't have the just load of first-round picks that Georgia's had recently. And,
right.
And I think, you know, Alabama, I mean, both of them are a little bit maybe down defensively, but I think lots of potential for both offenses. So I think we might have a fun one.
In the NFL this weekend, the Titans don't play until Monday night, but a couple of fascinating matchups as you look around the league. We talked about the Steelers and the Colts. Colts at 1-2, Steelers at 3-0, an opportunity for the Steelers to remain undefeated there. The Chiefs and the Chargers, which you brought up. And then I think the game of the week in the NFL, Joe, Bills, Ravens, Sunday Night Football. Sign me up for some of that.
Yeah, that's a huge one. I do think we may see some 3-0 teams not be undefeated. Like I said, I've called it on the Vikings for sure. And I actually kind of disagree with you on the other one too. I feel like somehow the Colts are going to figure out a way against the Steelers, but we'll see. And the Ravens, Bills look as good as anyone. There is a little bit, kind of like with the Seahawks, a little bit of who have they played with the Bills.
Yep.
And the Ravens need it, man. You know, you start in that hole. It's just absolutely still unfathomable to me that they blew that game to the Raiders, who I think are going to end up winning like 3-4 games this year. But they did. And they went out and largely dominated Dallas. So I think we may have a great one there on Sunday night.
Matthew in Nashville on the text line. Does MTSU have a chance to pull off the upset against Memphis after Navy shocked them last week, or will Memphis bounce back? We will see Memphis and MTSU this weekend. What do you make of that one, Joe?
Yeah, I like Memphis convincingly. Tough loss for Ryan Silverfield in that program because, like, they really were going to be in this thing with the group of 5. But they're, look, it's a tough year for middle. They've got some roster holes to fill, but Memphis is a pretty good football team, man. Memphis, Seth Hennigan is a good quarterback, so I think they're going to win by double figures.
Dylan on the text line. Excuse me, I'm not reading the wrong text. Caleb on the text line saying Danny O, which I'm assuming meaning Orlovsky, on Get Up saying if the Bengals lose, they should trade one of the wide receivers. Burks and any pick they want for Higgins? ? That's from Caleb on the text line. I'll say this.
Sure.
I need to see a little bit more out of T. Higgins than what I've seen over the last calendar year. It's not. I mean, injuries have been part of that for sure, but I need to see a little bit more from T. Higgins if he's going to be commanding all this money.
Right. And injuries being a part of it, that's concerning, right? Yeah, like if they keep piling up here, they don't go down when you get older typically. So I'm with you. Jamar Chase is a great receiver. T. Higgins is a very good receiver. I think he may be a little bit overestimated in some minds. Have I been screaming the whole show? Dean Johnson says, "Why is Joe screaming the whole show?" Is that true? Is that accurate?
I don't know, but you fall for Dean Johnson's text every time. Every single time you fall for it.
Oh, crap. That's right. Should I out him?
I don't think so. I think we should leave it alone.
Okay. We know who you are, though, Dean Johnson, so stop it. But I'm the dumb one who still responds to
He's
him.
not going to stop. It works every show.
Kind of ugly. Dang it. Well, he keeps changing up his thing. He used to be, like Donna from Bellevue or something?
Joanna from Donaldson.
Yeah, Joanna from Donaldson, and now he's freaking Dean Johnson. How many burners does he have on our thing? Worry about your own show.
615-737-1025, our phone number. All right, we're going to get hot and heavy into the Titans and Dolphins matchup on Monday. Titans are going to try to avoid 0-4, and we have to wait until Monday Night Football to figure out whether or not they're going to do that. I'll say this, and we can ponder on this weekend. If they lose this game, Joe, and particularly if they lose this game either because of or in addition to a Will Levis turnover that just turns out to be disastrous, it's going to be a long 2 weeks here in this city. A long 2 weeks of just sitting there stewing on it before more football is played when they take on the Colts. It would behoove everyone in the organization, and really I think all of our sanity, for them to go out and not only win the game Monday, but to look like they've got a little bit of a clue offensively while they do it. That would be great.
Yeah, because it won't just be 2 weeks of stewing. It'll be 2 weeks of arguing, which we've already been arguing, right, and discussing the whole when do you pull the plug. But if that happens, because I'll tell you, again, I want to see the whole thing. If it's like atrocious across the board, then I reserve the right to change my mind. But for the most part, I'm still going to stay. You have to give the games to the kid. But more and more people will be on the other side. I get that.
Going to be a great weekend. Got a lot of good college football games coming up this weekend, headlined by Alabama and Georgia. We will be back on Monday morning to have you covered on the Titans and the Dolphins coming up on Monday Night Football for the entire nation to see, baby. Titans football getting the national spotlight, kind of, coming up on Monday Night Football in addition to the Seahawks and the Lions with 2 Monday night games. Joseph, have yourself a wonderful weekend. I hope the high school games are able to be played tonight, and a nice, juicy matchup between Nolensville and Centennial.
Big one. Here you go. Big one. Fridays for nights. Yes, we'll be playing the rain, running the football kind of game. Yeah. And, Robbie, you have a great birthday tomorrow.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Hendersonville taking on Beach tonight, too. Go Commandos. We'll see how that goes. Jason Big Joe coming up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3 The Game.